Welcome to the July meeting of the Town of Kent Planning Board. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're upside down, Dennis.
Again? Thank you. Members, have you read the minutes from the June meeting?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions or comments about them?
No, sir.
Can I get a quick motion to accept?
I got one question.
Please.
Pages 2 through the end of it, the date on it is May 12th. You copied that over from the other ones. Okay, thought that's what happened. That nothing else.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that.
And a second.
I'll second it.
And Simon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Giancarlo?
Aye.
Dennis?
Yep.
Hugo?
Aye.
Sabrina?
Aye.
And Stephen?
Yes, sir.
And I vote aye too. Is there anyone here from Flintlock Storage? We haven't seen you in a while.
So sorry to be back.
Well, you can leave now if you want.
What I meant was, I'm sorry that Jamie's not here. Jamie's home. She has a baby boy.
Oh, yeah.
Logan John, happy, healthy boy, and everybody is doing well. Yes. That
And-
being said, I'm John Watson from Insight Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture. We're here for a follow-up meeting for the Flintlock self-storage. I'm here with the applicants, Frank, Christy, and Alec Vazzi, also Kent residents. The last time we were here for this project, there were some issues with the wetlands. The wetlands were not delineated properly in accordance with the Town of Kent Wetland Code. So we did have a soil scientist come out, and we have the revised wetland boundaries. We showed that at the last meeting. We pulled back some of the development because of the increased wetland buffers. Since then, we've also developed the plan set. We've got layout plan, landscaping plan, grading plan, utility plan, erosion control plan, and supporting details. We submitted a stormwater management report, and here for a continued review on the project.
Thank you, John. Members, any questions for him? Consultants, do your thing.
Good evening. My name is Liz Axelson. I'm the planning consultant to the Town of Kent Planning Board. And I did some review comments. I'm not going to delve into them a whole lot, but there are a couple questions that I flagged for planning board discussion because I don't want to keep asking about these things if you're one way or another about them. So one of the comments has to do with prior comment to add notation of the plan set specifying the proposed days and hours of construction and operation, including the use of storage units and outdoor storage, which would allow, so there is notation there, and it would allow 24-hour operation for renter access to storage units. And I had originally said this may be a concern given nearby residents. And also, there's no gate, which is fine. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, if this is a concern at all for the planning board or not, that it's 24 hours.
Members?
What would be the concern?
What?
What would be the concern?
Just, if people are there in the later hours and there was noise and you've got nearby residences, you don't have that many. You have one that's right nearby.
Right.
Is the other storage facilities in the town 24 hours as well?
I have no idea.
Because I think
I don't think so.
I think they can access them at any time.
Oh, maybe.
Well, it's wide open, there's no gate on that.
Yeah.
There's no restriction in your code about 24 hours. I'm just bringing it up to you as
Oh,
a,
I just don't want to burden another business that we didn't burden the other business that
Exactly.
we just approved a storage project.
I don't remember that, well, I don't think they were doing 24-hour.
can self-storage.
Are you talking about VBrock?
Like, there's no.
Yeah, they can go there 24 hours a day. so-
Yeah. Can
Yeah,
self-storage.
He is
Yeah,
24
that-
hours.
4-hour.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
He's got
I don't,
no-
honestly didn't remember that detail, so there you go. So
No issue.
how do you
So
feel
no
about
issue.
it? No
My
issue,
side.
okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No,
Good.
we're
Okay.
fine with it.
Okay, good. So there's no issue there, so I don't have to keep asking that question. And the other one is,
The fence issue would be more to the next door neighbor, whether they want a
A
fence.
fence, like a property.
Yeah, like a
something
property
to-
line fence.
well, there is
Separate.
stockade fence around the outdoor storage, which probably will look pretty nice and neutral. So that, I wasn't concerned about a
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah.
I only asked because a lot of storage places do have like a gate that you have to have a little card and unlock, and this doesn't, there's no
Yeah,
requirement.
this is a smaller.
Yeah, there's no
storage
requirement
unit,
at all.
So I think that that's, yeah, okay.
So the other comment is my comment 8B, and I'll just read it to you. Prior comments, per code zoning section 77-23A5, sidewalks shall be provided along any existing, any existing or proposed public street. This is why I brought the topic up. The sidewalks shall be separated from the street by a tree lawn of at least 4 feet wide. This is a requirement of your code, so I've raised it and haven't had a response on this. And I thought, let me bring this up to the planning board and see what you would like to do.
Can we do the same language like we did before, since there are no existing sidewalk anywhere near that property?
Do
So we
an
should give them
easement?
an easement, that, yes.
I had a feeling that we might end up
Does
there.
everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
So we don't burden that one
Yeah.
applicant, but
So
again,
you're-
the town has an easement on the file, so if they do get grants.
You're preserving the potential, and that's fine. So we'll set that up. And then, you know, some progress has been made between the first submittal, and I think this is the third, but I think we didn't review the second because we were asked to kind of wait. So I still have quite a few more comments, and in my opinion, I really don't think it's time yet to declare this complete. It's not complete, as per your code. And so I think it would be good for the board to see another submittal, and hopefully we would have what we need in hand to move forward, take some action, do referrals, set a public hearing, and head towards seeker. But that's my recommendation on that.
And we wanted to see draft language anyways.
What?
For the easement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we need
So-
another.
Yep.
thing anyway.
Yep, okay? I'm gonna go wait.
Just to clarify, so will you provide the draft language for that easement, or do you want us to? You will?
No, they already have it, and, yep. And you guys worked on the other project anyways, correct? It was, Kent Self-Storage, was it?
I did the first several, the last one, he did on his own.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought Jamie was on that.
We'll get you a copy, because I think we came up with the language, you handled the easement description for
Same
Beaver
company.
Rock, but we did the language, so we'll make sure we get something to you. Good evening. For the record, my name is John Andrews. I serve as the engineer to the planning board in this matter. I also have a comment memo dated today. And in large part, it's kind of technical. They've addressed some of our concerns, but I think there's a couple issues that I need to bring to your attention, just as Liz did. The first one, if you recall, this property derives its access from a right-of-way. And there's some discussion and our recommendation to them was to widen that right-of-way to a uniform paved width of 24 feet for the length of their property to just after their second entrance. They have modified their plans to reflect that. They've also done some research, and I think they've also had some communications with the planning board attorney. The matter is as clear as mud still, but what they have done is they have found one of the, I think the responsible property owner, although the names kind of don't jive just yet, but that owner has basically signed a letter which says, yeah, they can improve the surfaces and do that. That matter is still under review by the planning board attorney. I've been back and forth with him a couple times today. And while we take no issue with what they've done, the best option would be to see if we could push this to a recordable instrument so that it runs with the land and really clarifies, because there are other properties that also derive access off that right of way. So the planning board attorney is subject to, final review and discussion with their attorney, his recommendation would be that if or when this application, an approval of this application is warranted, the final matter, how we resolve that, could be a condition thereof. But his recommendation would be a recordable instrument, similar in force and effect to this easement that we're looking for the sidewalk. So that's item number one. Item number two, there's a little, if you recall, there were some oddball features on the site that kind of defied explanation. There were things that didn't make sense. They did some research with some help from a lot of folks, and some of the features are likely vestiges of previous development on this site. There was apparently, at one point in time, up to 2 residences with their own septic systems and wells. There was perhaps an ice cream parlor, as some people have said. I'm not sure. But that serves to explain several of them. The biggest one is there is a road crossing of Route 52. There's a box culvert that crosses Route 52. They couldn't find a discharge. Well, after much searching, they found the discharge. It's on the property to the north. And basically, if you look at the existing conditions, somebody attached to their side of the culvert, and it makes almost a 90-degree bend and runs to the north. The details of that are somewhat vague and undefined, although there is a 24-inch end pipe that discharges on the neighbors with a defined invert. We would like to see some more detail because there is no easement, and it's attached to a DOT culvert. So there's some perhaps concerns about relocating, touching, modifying it. So one of our first recommendations is we need a little more detail about what's there, particularly how it bends, because typically you don't bend storm drainage pipe unless it's at a structure. But we'd like some more details. We would also recommend that they consult the New York State DOT, because I don't know how we've got a rectangular box culvert on one end and we've got a round culvert on the other end. How it reaches that point, don't know. And they are relocating it. Some of the relocation details are not yet provided, the size of pipe, the definition of the structures, the slopes, and whenever you're doing that, there's some suspicion here. I'm not sure if it's properly sized, so I'm not asking for a detailed upstream drainage study, but I need some simple calculations that would suggest that the pipe they're proposing is the appropriate size. The worst thing you want to do is relocate something and have a pipe that's too small and all of a sudden it pops out of the ground where it's not supposed to.
What is the purpose of that pipe?
Yeah, whose problem is that?
Well,
Is that like a-
property on the west side of Route 52?
Yep.
The schools are up here on the side.
Yep.
So
You got to use the microphone, John.
I forgot, I'm sorry. So what we're talking about for reference, here's Route 52.
Yep.
Here's our property, the right-of-way is here. There is a culvert, what John mentioned, there's a concrete head wall on the west side of Route 52.
Yep.
And it's if you're standing out there, you can see where the ground sort of dips on the left side. So there's a concrete head wall and a pipe, as John mentioned, going across the culvert. We went in there, shined flashlights. It goes,
Okay.
you can see it going for a distance, but then you just can't see any further. And it does come out and dump out, as you mentioned, on the neighbor's property to the north.
Okay, so it is a functional, and it is discharging up there onto the neighbor's property. So
Correct.
it is DOT's stormwater that's being
It's
discharged.
clearly the DOT's head wall and culvert.
Yeah, so they're the ones that have to come up with a response to their discharge.
Say it again, please.
They're the ones who are gonna have to come up with a response.
Well, they're going to put it on us to figure this out and present something to them to make sure they're okay with it. They're not going to offer to do this for us. We have to
Yeah.
propose something, they have to approve it. But what it does is it takes road drainage from the west side of Route 52, and there's also a hill here. It's known as Smoyer's Field. It's been
Because it gets fuzzy when you're in there right away. Because now you're playing around with their stuff and making recommendations in their right of way.
that's
I don't know if it will letter to them saying that we would like this disconnected off our property and then let them figure out a plan. That's,
they'll never get it done. Like, we have to go to them with a proposal, and they'll review it, and then they'll allow us to do that, right, John?
I don't have a microphone, but my voice does carry.
Yep.
What you will typically find in a situation like this, normally speaking, DOT their culverts would begin and end like they do on the north side.
Correct.
So whatever was done on the south side, I don't even know if DOT is aware of it. So that's why our recommendation is, before we get too far, that these folks need to talk to DOT to see what needs to be done. DOT may in fact say disconnect.
Yeah, that's what I'm
They-
thinking.
they may, in
That's what
fact-
I'm saying, they probably will say
They,
disconnect it.
they may
and
have a
it.
different opinion altogether, but that's neither mine to make, nor is it these folks.
Correct.
I think they have to reach out to DOT. That was the gist of my comment.
I got a feeling that they're gonna ask them to be disconnected, and that way you can demo the pipe.
But we still got to get, the unfortunate thing is, since there is no easement, we have to figure out, they will have to figure out how to control the runoff on their site, because right now, that pipe actually goes through one of the buildings and underneath everything. So it's not a simple matter. It's a little bit
And
more
if we
complicated than it appears
and-
on its face.
If they didn't go through DOT and they just left it there, what problems does it pose?
They'd have to alter their development.
Oh,
We wouldn't want to build a building over a pipe
Got it,
of,
okay.
of unknown origin and type and condition. So it's in our best interest to figure
To
out what's
find
going on.
And this is
what
kind of where
is-
they're proposing their rain garden, your stormwater retention. Yes.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear you.
Stormwater retention, this is your stormwater retention area?
Yeah,
and-
our stormwater treatment area
Yeah.
is right where that pipe is, so we need to excavate down to hold our
I got it,
stormwater.
okay.
It's going right where that pipe is, so we need to relocate that pipe anyway for our work. So we've already shown on our plan diverting that water around our property and discharging it back to the same place. So all we're doing is relocating where that pipe is now with a pipe of known size, type, condition. You know, that's going to be new construction, and
Right.
it's outside around all of our development, so it's best for us to do this also.
okay.
And having said that, so we're going to need some more information there. They also, it's a little unusual, they are proposing a holding tank, not a subsurface disposal system. And we asked that they talk to the building inspector. I don't think they've yet talked to Mr. Walters. But we also asked that they confirm with Putnam County that Putnam County would accept a holding tank. We don't have any documentation, although the preliminary indications that they did provide us was that may be possible. But that's an issue that has to be.
Secondary containment? Secondary containment? No? No. Nothing?
It's probably going to be a tank with an alarm.
Yeah,
think.
we're just worried about that because it's so close to wetlands there.
But it's no different than a septic tank on any other development. So all we're showing is a septic tank with no pipe out of it.
I know, I'm just thinking about when you're pumping it and everything else, you know, just,
Yeah. But we have spoken to the health department, and for this, we gave them a copy of this plan, told them what we were doing, how much use it would be, and they said that the holding tank is acceptable. So
Yeah.
we'll get that information.
but
to
even
you.
with the secondary containment that I'm speaking of, concrete pad with sides, you know, would suffice. We're not talking about like an oil water, like you probably won't need an oil water miser or anything like that, just because of what it is.
I think it's
Just
going to be
needs-
actually underneath the paved lot, so
Oh, you think it's gonna be under, that's gonna be
it's going to be in the
subsurface?
paved portion of their lot. So
Okay.
the truck's going to be able to drive up. They're probably going to have a manhole.
Okay.
If dependent upon how they do it, some people actually put a pump suction already in it, so all the truck has to do is take off the cap and do a quick connect. I leave that up, those details up to them.
Okay.
The last item I have, and it's slightly different than Liz's, they do propose an outdoor storage location. That outdoor storage location is at the back of the site. It's screened with a 6-foot stockade fence. Don't have an issue with that. But my experience has been some of those outdoor storage facilities, especially if they're storing trailers, large vehicles, tend to be somewhat willy-nilly. And if something happens back there and emergency services need to get there. So we kind of like to see some type of, and it may be nothing more than a series of notes on the plan, that they maintain some aisles, they maintain some access ways, they don't store the vehicle, you know, a large vehicle right up against the back of the building or something of that nature. So I just raised that because I've seen it become a concern on other places where, you know, somebody will bring in a trailer and drop it off in the middle of the night, and they block everybody else in there. So,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
there's some issues that need to be resolved. Other than that, there are still some open matters. They did a pretty good job of addressing most of our concerns, but I hit the big ones. And again, I think we need some
Would
clarity
sign-
on
Would
it.
signage work to
Pardon?
alleviate that concern for, no parking?
That's something we need to figure out, and these folks need to tell us.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as that. Yes, Mr. Wong.
Okay.
So, there are still some issues that need to be resolved.
Ruth?
Last one, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I feel like Columbo here. I'm sorry. Now I'm dating myself by using that reference. But one of the things in looking at the package, they do need an erosion control permit, but separate and distinct, they also need a freshwater wetland permit. So historically, when you have both, you actually issue both. So there will be two. The erosion control permit is typically signing the plan set, but in most other instances, particularly when there's a large wetland impact, there is a detailed wetland approval permit that's issued. So it has to be created and crafted.
Yep.
And that's
Or
a
just
joint
go to
effort
wetlands.
between Bruce and myself.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Ruth?
Good evening, my name is Bruce Barber, I'm the town's environmental consultant. I think to start, as John indicated, there was some wetland delineation work that has been completed subsequent to your last meeting. So John, would you be able to show the board kind of where the final lines are so we're all on the same page with that? I appreciate that.
So and to give a little history too, when we had our wetland consultant flag the wetlands, he flagged it based on the U.S. Army Corps federal wetland criteria, which is what most towns. I'm so sorry. Thanks. So at the beginning of this project, before we even came to your board initially, we had a wetlands consultant come out and flag the wetlands. He flagged it in accordance with the U.S. Army Corps federal wetland criteria, which is what most towns use as their guide. Town of Kent has a wetland code that includes certain soil types as wetlands over and above what the Army Corps does. So because of that, there were wetlands on site that were not initially flagged as a wetland. And if you were out there, it doesn't look like a wetland proper. It's more like a mowed wet meadow. So it was, and we're not trying to claim, we're just claiming ignorance. He didn't know. So now he'll know and he'll never make that mistake again. So thank you. So what we've got is the original wetland line basically ran along the northern property line. So it's on our property by a few feet, back on this property by a few feet, and then it turns, there's a pond in the middle here and a stream that runs down here. These wetland flags are along that stream. So what happens is there's a low area down through the center of the property, and that's where these wetland soils are. So the new wetland actually comes up into the property as far as this. So it's approximately, say, 50 feet-ish wide, 50 to 80 feet wide, and it's just over 100 feet long, maybe 125 feet long. So what that does is, before we had a 100-foot wetland buffer that's here, where my finger is. Now what we do is we have a town wetland buffer that comes out to here. So what it's done is it's made a lot more of the property within the wetland buffer, which John mentioned before. We're going to need a wetland permit for that. And because I would consider this a substantial encroachment into the wetlands because of the amount of development in the now town wetland buffers. So what we've done for a couple things is we pulled buildings out. There were buildings that were in that wetland, the new wetland. So we've pulled those buildings out of the wetlands. So now the buildings are only in the buffer. And in order to mitigate, we had mitigation on our initial plan, but now that we knew that we have much more wetland encroachments and buffer encroachments than we initially thought, we tried to do what we could to increase our mitigation and do as much as we could with what we've got on the property. So what we've done there is we've made our stormwater basins a little bigger than they need to be per the regulations. New York State DEC has very strict and clear regulations on how big you need to make your stormwater practices. By making the buildings smaller, we use that extra land to make the stormwater practices bigger. So we're giving more back there, and we've also, I don't know percentage-wise, but I would say we significantly increased the density and number of wetland plantings and the seed mixes that are in this whole back area. So although we are looking for a permit to build buildings in a town wetland, the Federal Army Corps wetland buffer, which is this line here, just really includes our stormwater management. So what we've done is taken all of the original buffer area and use that for stormwater management.
And this is why Chapter 39A, the town self-identified wetland soils, goes far above and beyond what federal and DEC and DEP require.
Right.
So we self-regulated ourselves into a corner.
Yeah. And honestly, the wetland consultant that we hired to do the work wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah.
And that's honestly that's on him.
Yeah, and no, it's not. I'm saying it's just that we've burdened ourselves in our code so
Yes,
much.
right. Yeah, if this were in any of your neighboring towns, that would not be a wetland, and we would be back to where we were. But but the code is the code, and that's what
We're here to make recommendations about that.
Okay.
Yes. We want to improve the businesses in our
Right.
town. We don't want to restrict them.
Okay.
Because otherwise we'll have no business in this town.
Did that answer your question?
Thank you, John. Two other things just to add to that. There is adjoining the property a designated DEP regulated watercourse. What the applicant has done, correct me if I'm wrong, John, is they have removed any of the impervious surfaces outside of 100 feet from that watercourse.
Correct.
And therefore they do not require a permit from the DEP. Just closing the door on the wetlands, the board will recall that when we first saw this, the wetlands mapping pursuant to the soils map from NRCS showed virtually the entire site as being wetland soils as defined by the town code. And what we were able to do is work with the applicant, and thank you for getting the consultant out there, to do a site-specific study. And that's exactly what the consultant did, and found that indeed there were some what are called hydric soils there, but not that as expansive as had been originally mapped. And basically the wetland size was realized as what it is out there currently, and the project was able to be changed but continue in progress. So we appreciate the efforts on that. Just to be clear, each town, quite frankly, has their own wetlands ordinance with their own thresholds. The town of Kent, using and listing soils, is not the only town that I work in that does that. There are others that I've encountered as well. It represents somewhat of an older review in terms of wetland law and wetland ordinances. But it is what it is, and it's not unique just to the town.
No, it's just something that's a relic, and it was before all these new stricter DEC regulations that came out.
Yeah, it's challenging, Steve, because there's literally 4 layers of regulation. There's the town, there's the state, there's the federal government, and there's DEP. So there's all these layers in dealing with wetlands. You're absolutely right.
And thank you for sticking with us throughout this.
So
we appreciate it.
So the first question I have is really, it involves the septic tank or holding tank, and I had the same thoughts you did, Steve, with respect to should we have a redundancy system there just to ensure that if there is a failure of the pump or something happens, we're in the wetland buffer, we have changes. But I guess my first question, John, is what is precluding just having a traditional septic system with a treatment leaching area on the site?
We talked about that, and honestly, the reason for that is that this is going to be a mostly unmanned facility. Mm-hmm. So there's an office here, but it's not going to be manned full-time. So there's going to be someone here for a couple hours a week. Mm-hmm. And to put in a septic, we did test for a septic system, and we do have soils that are outside of the regulatory buffers that would prohibit putting septic in, and we did test holes. We have adequate soils for a septic system. They are over here on the eastern part of the property against the neighbor's fence line, but it is uphill of where the office is. So we'd have to put in a septic tank, a pump pit, a force main, and the septic system. We did have groundwater, big surprise, and so there'd be a couple feet of fill. So that's probably a $50,000 septic, where to have someone there for a couple hours a week, it just really, it's not needed for this use. So what we're looking at is a holding tank. We've had a couple discussions with the health department. We've done this type of system before with the health department, and as long as we can give them a use schedule of who's going to be there, how often, how long we expect to have to pump it out, what's a pump out, estimated schedule. There'll be alarms in the tank such that when the, I'm making up the numbers, but when the tank is about 2/3 full, an alarm is going to go off. And that will notify the owners that you need to pump out. So if we put in, say, a 1,500-gallon tank, the alarm will go off when there's 1,000 gallons in the tank. We still have another 500 gallons, and if they're using 5 gallons a week, you know, that's a lot of weeks of time to pump that out. So it's, for a mostly unmanned office, it's just not worth the expense to have to put in the septic. But we have allocated area here. We've purposely not put the outdoor storage over it. We did not want to compact the soils. So we are, even though we didn't put it on the plan for your review, internally, we've set aside area for that in case in the future that somebody wants to change the use of the property. We're not precluding the use of some other type of use in the commercial zone, because this is one of the, you know, the town of Kent does not have a lot of viable properties on the commercial zone in 52, and we didn't want to condemn this property to having to be self-storage forever. So that's what we've done.
Does the, I can't recall, sorry, does the applicant propose to have a generator on the site that would supply electricity to the alarm? You guys thinking of a generator?
I haven't thought about it yet,
Okay.
but we'll
Yeah, I'm thinking just maybe, and as John suggested, in the plan notes, John, to have some of these elements articulated in terms of the management of the septic tank and an alarm system perhaps.
that's all in the jurisdiction of the health department,
Yeah.
and we're going to have to do all of that for that.
Absolutely.
But the alarm system, UPS.
Sure.
And also just to consider, in speaking with the health department, the building inspector, perhaps a redundancy or type of system, just to make sure, because we're very close to the wetland buffer. So all things to kind of mosh around.
Yeah, so
Okay?
Bruce, I'm just saying for that little alarm has really no draw. It'll probably last for weeks, screaming at top of the low, coming off a battery backed up system.
Yeah, anything that we
Yep.
could make sure we have some kind of system, Steve, so we know that in the
Oh, yeah.
event that if somebody can't make it, they're on vacation, there's a big traffic jam, the alarm's going, something will be okay there and not,
You could even have
not
a little
impact the
cellular,
buffer.
you can even have a little cellular alarm go off anymore. That's-
Yeah, I mean, you know,
cool
they could
stuff
probably,
anymore.
these days, you could tie it into phones, and
Oh, yeah,
there's all
that's what I
sorts of
mean.
great
Yep.
stuff to do. But just, we're on the same page in
Oh,
terms
yeah,
of having something
100%.
like that.
Yep.
Also, with respect to the business plan, in terms of, that could be plan notes in terms of what's going to be going on in the storage area, so that if there is concerns of the planning board or the neighbors of noise or stored materials that might be out there so close to the wetland buffer, that'll be memorialized in the plan. So I'm sure that's something that John can work on with his client as well. Okay, so I would just want to get to the wetlands proper per se, and I will say that it's an unusual circumstance that the town would be considering a disturbance in an actual delineated wetland as we are with this particular project. However, this particular site has a long history of disturbance, a long history of varied uses. The wetland itself is isolated. The vegetative cover is basically lawn cover or turf, as you would, that's been managed over time. And I suspect that part of the hydrology that drives those soils is not as plentiful as it might be to continue that wetland in perpetuity, in a sense that it seems to be more of a relic situation than something that is a growing and active wetland. That is an exception to the wetlands we generally see in this town, and so basically that is why I think the board can consider doing this type of project in a wetland in this particular case. But one of the things that's important is to take a look at what the wetland function is now in terms of, is it groundwater storage, is it flood attenuation, is it a variety of things that wetlands do, and compare that to what will be here post-construction and make sure that we're replicating these functions. And so I've talked to the applicant's consultants about taking a look at pre- and post-construction pollutant loading, and rightfully they've designed the stormwater management practice to meet Chapter 10 requirements of the New York State Stormwater Design Manual, and that makes perfect sense. But I am asking them also to take a look at something very simple to do. It's actually called the simple method, where you can take a look at pre- and post-construction loading pollutants to a design point, which could be where they're designing the stormwater discharge point, and say, listen, here's what we're doing. The pollutant loading is A, pre-construction over there, and by doing all these things in the buffer and doing the stormwater management, we are actually reducing the pollutant loading at that same site, which basically then serves as mitigation with respect to the code as a requirement in terms of doing things in a wetland and wetland
Which
buffer.
they're gonna be doing because of the stormwater retention.
Right, and the stormwater detention will basically maintain the hydric soil conditions there, perhaps in addition to what's there presently, given the hydrology on the site. The other thing that we talked to the applicant about is this pipe, and is there a potentiality to do some type of mitigation with that? And I believe John Jamie said that the inverts aren't really good to do open channel flow or anything that we talked about earlier. But if the pipe is being moved, there's a potential maybe to do something, even to the extent of having a drop box in there with a deep sump that be cleaned of sediment, or I don't particularly like filters in stormwater chambers because they're a maintenance hassle and a continued cost, but maybe something that could be done there as well. So the mitigation design is a lot of plantings. We just want to make sure that we're going to be able to meet the code requirements of saying it meets requirements of mitigation, and that there's no post-construction issues after we've done and completed the mitigation. I have some other odds and ends on my memo, some EAF T's to cross, a few other odds and ends as well regarding lighting plans and all that sort of great stuff. But for the most part, we're waiting for some information from Natural Heritage, what I don't suspect would be very substantive. John, I don't think it's in a DEP designated Main Street area. They would have told you already.
It's not, correct.
Great, so that's a great thing. And just a couple of odds and ends as well, but for the most part, we just need a bit more information on this to move it forward. Okay, John, did you get this?
I did, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I got all 3 consultant comment memos today. I have no questions. It's all clear.
Members, any questions? No. John, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
So we're done with you, kid.
Okay.
And we're burning chapter 39A.
Yes.
You, back there, come forward.
John,
Yeah,
this is kind of casual.
I would assume you're speaking to me.
I'll speak on behalf of the planning board of the town of Kent.
Yes.
Pass along our congratulations to Jamie on the birth of her new little boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll do that tonight.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
And John, it was good seeing you.
It is, he was dying today.
I'm sorry, Bob.
John.
You're on.
I know.
After all this time, I'm still Bob Bradley, still,
You have to identify yourself, please.
yeah, I just did it, Bob Bradley. I'm representing the Hollies on a property on Winkler's Farm. On Thursday afternoon, I opened my email, and certainly what to my wondering eyes should appear, but a stipulation.
but a stipulation.
A final stipulation done by the planning board attorney. This is signed by my clients, and it's also notarized. So the question is now, we have signed this, and it's all set to go on our part. And we'd like to know, I know it has to be signed by the chairman here and by the town supervisor. So the question would be, at this point, who do I pass this on to? Just go to Vera?
Give it to the boss.
There were a couple questions that were in this. It was relatively detailed as to what we have submitted so far. There were questions as to parking, and there were some other questions that we would have to answer, and we will do that and get those answers in to the consultants. The question has come up before about sidewalks. We too our plan is not to do sidewalks. There's absolutely no place to walk to on Winkler Farm, and the only place to walk through is a trail that goes to the park. We abut Ryan's Park on the other side of the river. People can walk down, there's a trail there already, we can pick up the town trail and go into Ryan's Park. Otherwise, we want to keep the impervious surfaces to the smallest possible amount that we can. I know that's not before us tonight, but I just wanted to let everyone know that this is signed. We'd like to proceed from here.
Because it's in the code.
Great, thank you, Bob. Members, do you have any reasons why I shouldn't sign that?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Well, I was going to ask them first.
you have the final stipulation, I'm sorry. What you need to do is a simple oral resolution tonight to empower you to sign it, but more importantly, you have to send it to the town board for their signature and their consideration and signature as well, because they are a
Right,
signatory to
but
this as
they
well.
sign it before I do or after I do?
Technically speaking, you should send it to the town board, and once you hear back from the town board, you should sign it subsequent to their signature.
Okay.
So it's basically a two-step. It really doesn't matter time-wise, but to be a complete document, it needs to be signed by both boards. So your first
But they go
resolution
first.
is to accept it in its current form and status and refer it to the town board for their action. And as part of that, you can authorize the chairman to sign when it's ready.
Members, do you have any reasons why I shouldn't sign it?
And I'll make
No,
that, and I'll
doesn't
make a
appear.
motion.
And make a motion to
I'll make a motion to refer it to the town
To
board.
accept it,
accept.
Accept it.
complete, refer it to the town board, and empower the chairman to sign when it's ready.
I make the motion.
And a second, please.
I'll second it.
And Hugo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sabrina?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
And Paul? Simon? Aye. And I vote aye too.
Thank you. Vera, I would ask you to
This has
forward
been
it to the
months
town
now.
clerk and with a copy to the applicant as well as the consultant. Thank you.
Honey cakes. Honey
Thank you,
cakes.
Bob. You have any further questions for us?
No, but I just wanted to know that I would imagine that the consultants are going to go over the plan that we had submitted and give us whatever notes you want.
May I
Yes.
answer that?
Would you like the...
Sure, I'm short. I can just take this thing out of there. Our goal in doing the reviews that we did was to have enough information to get to the point where we could aid Jeffrey Battistoni, the planning board attorney, in continuing to craft this and revise, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as I'm concerned, and I think Bruce and John are in agreement, we don't really need to do any more review because we've come to a point where you have an acceptable stipulation. It's been signed. Chairman's going to sign it. It's going to be referred to the town board. And once that is done, and I guess it has to be filed or something, then you'll do a site plan review process. And then it'll be the full thing. We just tailored it to try to get to this stipulation. So that's that. We're not going to do comments. At least I wasn't going to. You miss my comments? Can you say that again? Speak into the mic.
I don't know whether I do. I actually want to say it publicly. But... All right, thank you very much. Yeah, just as soon as the town board signs this, if there's any questions with anyone from the town board about this, I am certainly local and will answer whatever they would want. And, you know, we have the plans that we've submitted here preliminarily to give them an idea of what it is that we're doing.
And
So-
Councilman Ruthven is here, so.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you would like, you know, us to come before the town board and explain this to you, I can show you what exactly we're doing. All right? Okay. Thank you,
They don't
gentlemen.
really know what they're doing, but they'll probably get through it. Thank you, Bob. It doesn't seem like there's anyone here from the next three.
And that is because,
You want to,
is there? And that is
run through it?
because, which one's first? Bernie's? No, honey cakes.
Hey, honey cakes, the next one's honey cakes.
Okay, the next one's honey cakes. So that is because they made a submittal. I was able to communicate with the applicant rep for honey cakes, get whatever information I needed, confer with Bill Walters, and write a de minimis letter. And they don't need to be here because there's nothing for the planning board to do.
Yep.
Okay? And regarding Bernie's hidden treasures, the same is the case.
Yep.
I worked with Bill and the applicants to get the review done, write the letter.
Oh, pink sugar.
And it's going
Can
fast,
we just
Bill's
get this
liking
lady
it.
her money back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's working out, and the applicants are very motivated to get things done so that they don't have to, not that they don't want to see you folks, but that, you know, They don't want to go to a
I
meeting.
read the email.
So we don't have to do anything on
And she's
anything?
right.
Oh, what, except for
We
6.
have to do-
6 we have to do, return
Pink
it.
sugar.
We have to recommend to town board. No,
Okay,
that one's
Can I
not.
get a motion?
You're doing,
We don't have to do pink sugar?
Pink
That's
sugar?
already gone back, the escrow amount?
Say again?
Pink sugar,
sugar?
the escrow amount that's remaining.
Well, I think that it was 500 was collected and 250 was billed.
Yeah, okay. Do we have to do anything for that? Okay, I'll make that motion. Return
And a
to
second?
I'll second.
And Hugo, how do you vote?
aye.
Sabrina?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Dennis?
Yep.
Giancarlo? Aye. Simon? Aye. And I vote aye. And who's working below the line tonight?
I'll start because I did a review of New York State DEP lot line revision with 7 Hills, and there are a few items that remain to be addressed, so that they can get their map signed eventually.
Okay, next one is DEP Churchill Road. They made a final submittal. I reviewed that final submittal. It's, Bureau is going to refer the letter of assurance to the town board for acceptance. And once that's been accepted by the town board, they're in a position to have their plan signed and go ahead. They will need to submit photographs when they're ready to go, but there's no sense taking them now because they're going to probably do it in the wintertime. White Vernon, we're waiting for updated information. They did, interestingly enough, you may have seen some email correspondence where Mr. Carell had suggested that DEP is moving rather slowly and they're having some difficulties with them. So they were exploring alternatives to perhaps building the house and relying on a generator and somewhat strictly solar. I think the building inspector kind of said that's not currently allowed underneath the current code for full-time residents, so I think they're going back to the drawing board and they may modify their approval because they do, remember, have frontage on a different street.
Yep.
And they may need to bring the utilities up that way. But we're waiting for them. The ball is back in their
Well, even
court.
if they have a different way of accessing it and have utility access, that's up to them. That's just
Yep.
a small little right of way.
Yep.
Depending on how far, whether it'll be nice, like primary, going up there or,
It's quite a ways either way.
yeah, so it's gonna be primary going up
Yep.
there then.
Ken self-storage, I don't think that's Liz. I'm sorry.
Super quick, you did a reapproval in May, so they'll have to hopefully get going and do all their construction so they don't have to come back and ask for another extension.
Yeah, they're done for another year.
Kent Manor, at the present time, there's nothing to do. We've had some discussions with the attorneys and we're waiting for clear direction from the attorneys.
And Route 52, I had an inquiry from the planning consultant and basically sent back the same kind of message that we had sent, that they need to address the March 24, 2020 review letter with full responses so that we can start to work with them offline.
Okay, Annunziata Smalley Corners, we're waiting for an updated submittal. Mr. Carell had promised one. I don't think we did receive one, did we, Vera? Okay. Friel and Pure, again, we're waiting for an updated submittal. They were revising architecture. I don't know what the status on that is. We haven't heard. Fregosi Marinelli, we can actually take that one off the list. Mr. Walters and I did a site visit, and we spent some time. We did get some information. We need some updated information. But the simple fact of the matter is, he relocated the septic system. He slightly tweaked the house. The net result of those two actions were no more disruptive than his original approval. He modified his stormwater management, actually made it a little better and lessen the impacts. So the long and short of it is, there was nothing that raised to a level that needed to come back to this board. It was all well within the intent. So I gave him some direction.
And it was all Board of Health approved.
It was all Board of Health approved. We can't close it out because he hasn't grown grass
Yeah,
yet.
we need as-bills, yeah.
But he got his CO, he got everything taken care of, And he was very cooperative in the end once he figured out that we were on his side. So we were able to, I think, move it ahead and reach a satisfactory conclusion for Mr. Marinelli. And didn't need to come back to you folks.
Why
Do we get an as-built survey to reflect
He
the
needs
final?
he needs to update it, but we got a partial.
Because he has a
And
building permit, right? That's
he
what
added some things after that came in, but he understands that he needs to give us an as-built survey once he's finished. He had a couple things that weren't done yet, so he needed to get those satisfied.
Okay, good.
And Ranieri, we're still waiting for a resubmittal. And Kent Mining, we had a conference call with members of the town board today. We've advanced that. We've got some, I think, we're in the home stretch and should be narrowing down the final draft to get to the town board in the near future.
Awesome.
Thank you, John. Associate members, do you have any questions or comments for us? Liaison, do you have any questions or comments for us? Yeah, I know. My bad. My bad. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And Simon, how do you vote?
That's the same vote, the same.
Yeah.
Interjected the de minimis change.
Hugo?
Aye.
Sabrina?
Aye.
Aye.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Changes to
Oh, good night.